Hello, how are you all doing? Right here in front of me, I have the legendary Honda VTR Firestorm, or just in case you're from the US, the Superhawk. Now I do believe, and I have often thought that over in the US they have the best names for everything, but here in the UK, this is called the Firestorm, and I do think it gives the bike credit. Anyway, this bike has got 11,000 miles on it. I've always wanted one of these. Personally, I wanted one in yellow, but I couldn't find one with low enough mileage. Snap this baby up, and it wants a full service. It's running a little bit rough. It's been stood for a while. I'm going to do a plug change on it, air filter, oil, you name it. Now, it shouldn't really want too much maintenance with only having 11,000 miles on the clock, but anything's possible. We just do not know what hands this bike has been in before me. First thing we're going to do is warm the engine up, get the oil up to temperature. I'm going to dump the oil out and change the oil. So we're going to wheel this over to the door. Let's start it. Okay. I'm going to give you a quick tour around it, and I'll show you what I'm going to be changing and what I'm going to be keeping. So, the screen, I think this may be a Japanese import bike. It's got a Japanese sticker with Japanese writing there. It's just faded. I don't know if you can I'll try and focus on that for you, if you can see it. So, this screen is all yellow and horrible. I could possibly sand this down and get it back to colour and buff it again, but I think I'm going to replace this screen. Probably save me a lot of work. We've got a tank sticker on here. I think I'm going to get that off and try and find one of those, hopefully, as original. There really isn't in too much of a shape. There's some rust there on that support of the bracket, but we'll get that sorted out. The indicators have been bobbed around with, so the wiring's loose on here. Looks like somebody couldn't get those right. This switch is faded. We're going to replace that. I've got one of those from an old Ducati, so I'll replace that switch. This sticker here is all sun bleached, so it looks to me, if you can, I don't think you can see it on here, but can you see those cracks in the clear coat there, all over there? This means that this side has been exposed to sunlight. All down here. You probably can't make them out on camera, but they are there. So there's a little bit of pitting forming on the aluminium on the frame, which just looks to me like it's been stood outside for a while, or a cold, damp environment. The seat's a little bit faded round here. There's some horrible, really well done stickers on the tank there, which we're going to get off. But overall, it's in pretty good shape. Everything's where it needs to be. We've washed it. When we got the bike, it was in such a pigsty. It was covered in moss and horrible stuff. But the tyre's pretty good as well. It's had a recent tyre on it. The chain looks all right. Just want to clean up the wheels. There's no chips in the wheels. Really pleased with it. No cracks. There's actually not one chip or dent on this bike anywhere. Nowhere. And another good thing to see that this bike has been taken care of in the past is the rear shock is lovely and clean, so it's not really had a hard life. Some of these will clean up. The engine's nice and warm, so we're going to get this oil dumped out now before it cools down. So right down here, the drain plug is there. It's a 12mm bolt. We're going to get a socket out for that. When I'm first cracking these off, I would advise you do not use an impact gun. So all I'm going to do is, oh, that's perfect. That's not too tight actually. So I'm just cracking that off, stick my pan on there. It's very low to the ground of these bikes. The side stand's obviously in the way. Let's see where that oil comes out, Ooh, that just hits there. So we're just going to let that oil bleed out a little while and we'll come back to it in a minute. Now the sump plug is pristine, it looks like it's brand new. It's not had a hard life, this bike, like I said. Usually you might see some crap here or some filings, which is not a problem. You do get engine wear and wear from the clutch, so if you've got a magnetic sump plug, that is. This, I believe, is not a magnetic one. However, it's pretty clean. Like I said, the oil's come out of there. We're gonna dump that oil into a waste container and see if there's anything in the bottom of the oil pan. Hopefully there isn't. All right, let's get this oil drain plug put back in there now. Just look at that oil, how clean it is. Again, this is a 13mm nut, and we're going to torque it up. The torque settings on this is 29 Newton meters or 22 foot-pounds. So I've got my wrench, and we're going to turn that 22 foot-pounds. And that's it. Next thing you're going to want is a Allen key. Don't know what size, but you're going to want a 10mm socket. There's a bolt right in there, nice and loose. Oh. This has definitely been off recently. Nothing's over tightened. I think it's been serviced by someone who knows what they are doing. Careful not to let that drop into the oil. We'll pop him to one side with the tools used. So you're going to want one of these oil filter tape wrenches, I call them, to get this off. And again, we'll stick our pan underneath that because more oil will come out of this. It shouldn't be tight, this. Although that feels extraordinarily tight. I think I'm going to have to get more leverage into this. It's going. Okay, that's loose enough for me to put my oil pan back under there now. Almost crushed it. Spotless stuff there. Here's our filter. Looks to be nice and clean inside there. Get that swapped out. So we have got all our service stuff on here. The air filter's on the bench, but we've got our spark plugs, we've got a K&N oil filter. Just going to check that with the other one. Make sure it is the correct filter. And then we've also got our 1040 oil. I would recommend, if you are in a hotter climate, I would use 1550 oil for this. Let's say if you're over 20 degrees averaging, I would use 1550 oil, but we're using 1040 at the moment. Right. Okay, so the K&N filter is actually smaller than the high flow one. Not to worry, they all do the same thing. This one's got a 17mm nut on the back of it, which is a lot better to remove than the high flow one, as you can see there. Now, usually I would submerge the oil filter in engine oil before I attach it to the bike. That way there's oil there when the bike starts up. But you've no real reason to worry about that. As soon as you push that fire button, the oil pressure should be up immediately. And there's also will be oil already on the cams and the cylinders. So don't worry about really filling this up. So the torque setting for this is 10 Newton meters or 7 foot-pounds. And that's it. Let's crack this. Right now, these are the Silcoline 100% fully recyclable oil packages. Quite good actually. Only problem with them, they don't have a level indicator on them. So you will need some kind of container to measure your oil out. Luckily, I have not got a litre one, but luckily I have got these paint containers, so I'm going to measure out 500 mil at a time. And this bike with an oil filter change will take 4.5 litres of oil. I'm going to go to 4.2. I'm going to set the bike up and check it on the level indicator. Obviously, when you fire the bike up, it'll push more oil around the engine. Usually, on your motorcycle, any motorcycle whatsoever, you will have the oil capacity stamped somewhere on the clutch housing. It's obviously here, but it is in Japanese. It says there, look, 4.5 without the oil filter. That is 3.9. On the top there, we've got a punch hole. We've actually got just in the side here grip handles. You can pour it in, and on the top there, you won't see it, maybe not on the camera, but we've got ourselves where it says there, gently push and remove. Is that gentle enough? Okay. Now inside here, you fish out the oil tap. That one's buried actually. Let me get this into position for you. Oh, this is a mess in here. Hopefully I'm doing this the right way. So, as you can see here, I'll show you here, there's a little ring on the bottom of the tap there. That's where you want to seat it into the cardboard. And the next thing you want to do is bend this down to trap it. It's a little bit fiddly, but we'll get there. And that's it, ready to go. A little struggle with that one, but we got it. And then we grip this, twist off the cap, and you're ready to pour. Right, I'm gonna get the bike up level and see where the oil goes to. Now that looks level in my opinion, so it appears to be bang on. We may want to top that up. What I'm going to do is just quickly fire the bike up, let it drag some oil around and check it again. Alright, that looks level, so I'm just going to fire that up one more time, let it run for 20 seconds or so, and then check it again. But we will put this on, otherwise we're going to get oil thrown out all over. Right, so the bike's level and that appears right where it needs to be. Right, that's done. Alright, with the oil change now we're going to go on to the spark plugs and the air filter, and we're going to get the carbs out and give those a clean as well, because this bike idles like a bag of spanners. It is awful, so it definitely does feel like it wants a tune-up. I know the oil has been changed recently in the bike, but we don't know when the spark plugs have been changed. All the carbs clean. If it's been sat for a while, then there might be a little bit of carnage in there. So then one other thing, when you're changing spark plugs on a VTR Firestorm, you may have two different plugs in there. You may have a standard NGK plug, which the number is DCP-R9E, or you may have an Iridium plug in there. You will want two different types of spark plug removal sockets, one 18mm and one 16mm. The 18mm will be the one to fit on the Iridium plug, and the 16mm will be the one to fit on the NGK standard plug. Now, first thing I'm going to do is remove the seat. And the seats in these bikes are usually pretty awful to get off. Ah, right. So, in case you wonder what I'm doing, I'm tying a bow line. Ever seen the film Jaws? You'll know what I'm talking about. A bow line or a bow line. There we go. Because I'm an ex-rigger, Royal Air Force rigger, I still know my knots. Come in very handy. So that's up there, nice. So we're going to get the airbox cover off there. There's a screw there, all the way around. That's going to lift off and the air filter should be underneath that. It's a little bit foul, but let's have a look what it's like in here. Well, that is one clean airbox. I am stunned at that. Every bike I have come across has had bugs and all sorts of crap in the airbox, which will eventually get sucked into the intakes in your engine. Reason being, you get people who've put aftermarket filters on ram air systems, homemade ram air systems, which just does nothing but clogs your carbs up and destroys the engine. But that is spotless. So this bike, yeah, we've got a good one here. And the air filter, is pretty. It's not that dirty, to be fair. I've seen a lot worse than that. There's not a lot of crap it's picked up. Usually down in these creases, that's where you get all your stones and your dirt and your grime. That's okay. They do get discolored. That's usually when they're oil stained. If you get oil in there from the crankcase breather, will probably over time fill that with oil. It will discolor it. So we've got our new one. We're not going to fit this yet. Just check that it fits anyway. Eliminates one problem, doesn't it? That fits in there. We're not going to fit that yet because we're going to get spark plugs out and the carburetors and clean them, so this will get removed and replaced later. I'm going to turn off the fuel. I'm using this 8mm spanner to rotate this fuel tap all the way around clockwise, and you can just see there, if I can zoom in for you, you've got off and on. Now there's a threaded hole in there. I'm pretty sure the last one did have a little tap on it, but this does not. It doesn't matter. You could put a bolt in there, like an 8mm bolt or something like that if you want to turn it. But right, we're going to turn that off because we're going to remove it later. We don't want fuel to spill out. And they're not tight either. Right, just behind here, the crank breather hose is. I'm going to remove this. Okay, we've got 8 of these bolts, screws should I say, which again are in pristine condition. I'm going to remove all these. That way we can get our airbox off the carbs. forgot there's one more little breather at the back there. Give it a tug, and out it comes. What I've done here, I've just marked this top throttle cable, the puller as I call it, with pink marker pen, or you can just put a little bit of tape round it, just so you know when you put them back together, you know which one's which. I mean, obviously all you have to do is pull on them and see which one's the return or not, but it just makes things a bit simpler doing that. Right, so we're going to need a 10mm spanner for this. Now down here is, let's see if I can find them on the camera. Alright, so we've got, I'm just trying to point them out to you, under there. These two collars here, I know it's blurry, these two collars here, you only want to undo really the top one, but I usually find every time I come to one of these, they are always, no matter what bike it is, they're always in a position where it's difficult to get to them. I mean, these should really be facing here, so I can get a screwdriver or socket in there to tighten them. So we're going to slacken off these locking nuts. This is where you get cut hands. Slack. There we go, that's those out. Nope, it's not them out yet. It's quite difficult this with one hand. Have we got it? Come on. Awkward, right. That's out. Okay, so we're now going to remove the choke plunger. We need an 8mm socket or an 8mm spanner for that, and it's located just down here. It stinks of fuel. So all you do with this, I've loosened it already because you need two hands. I could have left this bracket on there, but I'm going to give it a little scrub up. Just wind that nut all the way back, and this just comes out like that. I would then reseat this on. You don't need to take this plunger cover off, although that's a little bit loose. Screw that back onto there. That's fine. So the choke plunger, try, when you're pulling it out, try and push and pull at the same time. This cable goes to both car bodies, so push through here. Oh, there we go. And pull at the same time. That should now lift back and up. That's free. Okay, next thing is the TPS throttle positioning sensor. That's just push down and pull. Right, fuel lines. Oh. These will leak fuel out, so I'm just going to tip them upside down outside to get rid of any waste fuel that's in there. Oh, I love my coffee. You would just not believe the amount of junk that's just poured out of those carburetors. The fuel appeared like it was mixed with two-stroke oil or something. It was brown. So yeah, they definitely wanted a clean, all right. Oof, horrible, horrible. So this tank is definitely getting drained, definitely. Right, so what I've done is I've removed the bolts from the fuel valve, or the petcock as I call it. They're taken out, so the whole thing's come out. Now you will have to turn the key and stop the vacuum, so the fuel will flow out, otherwise it'll just trickle. Now you can hear that, or see that filling up, but look how red and dirty that fuel is. It really stinks. I've got the door open, so it's not the greatest way of doing it, but you know, make sure you're in a well ventilated area. Okay, so this is what I removed here. The actual fuel tap itself. Took those bolts out and let it all spill out. Take a look at this. What is that? I don't know why it's red. Looks like red diesel or something. I've never seen fuel red before. There's no rust in the tank, so this stinks. It's got to go outside. I've got to get that into an old fuel can and dispose of it. So we've flipped it upside down. That way we can get access to these retaining screws. Again, you may get more fuel pouring out of here, so make sure your area is ventilated. What I'm going to do is give these a slight tap with the hammer, just to shock them, not belt them, because I find that many of these screws, like this one down here, there's one down here which is a little bit rounded off, so somebody has been into this before. So give them a little tap, that should shock them loose. Sorry, carburetor screws do become tight over a period of time. So what you can do, if you grip your screwdriver and put some pressure to the left, keep tapping away, and the screw will come loose. That way you don't round it off. That's if you don't have an impact gun. Sometimes impact guns can be a little bit too rough. That's another one gone. Again, I have the power tools, but I never use them. Hardly. All these are becoming free. Just like that. Oh, I need to hold this steady out. Just like that. They all come free and you don't round any of them off. Okay. Ooh. One bowl's clean and the other one's got a little bit of rust in there. That's probably out of the tank. So I'm going to use my tiny little Allen key to push this float retaining pin out. Keep those safe. So I'm just checking these needle jets. These do wear out, but very uncommon to wear out. Let's see if I can zoom in. On the tips, are you here? If you're seeing a little ring round, that's where you're looking for wear on these tips. I've rarely seen them wear out, only on dirt bikes. Old dirt bikes have these worn out, but they look pretty fine to me. One good thing to check them. So look into here, you can see this red crap. The tank wasn't that rusty, to be fair, but this side here seems to have a little bit of grime in there. Okay, I'm just going to apologise right now because I've not realised during the carb cleaning that the camera was not actually recording. The memory card was full. I've just cleaned out the carb basically with an airline and some carburetor cleaner. I wanted to get that in the video, but I didn't realise the camera's not recording, so we're just going to skip ahead and reassemble it. But I will say this, when you are cleaning your carburetors, remove the jets, blow them out with the airline, and also use carburetor cleaner. Let it soak in there to loosen up any of that dirt, but you strictly use carburetor cleaner. Do not use brake and clutch cleaner. The reason being, brake and clutch cleaner for one factor is for brakes and clutch. They're very aggressive, and carburetor cleaner is less aggressive on the rubber seals, and if you use brake and clutch cleaner, it's quite easy to damage the diaphragm in the carburetor and any important seals, so you can use it, but you may find you'll get a constant vacuum leak, and that will cause problems when you reassemble your bike and get it back together. Just remember that, carburetor cleaner and air. Back to the video. Right, okay, this next part is pretty tricky. It involves replacing these diaphragms and the spring. So that's in there. We can start to manipulate this back into place, although it will pop out again once we start putting these putting the springs in, the retaining springs. But if it stays in place, then it's a bonus. Keep working your way around it. It will pop out. That's in there. Okay, the springs. Now this is a difficult angle for me to work at, so I'm just going to turn it around a little bit. Like I said, the diaphragm may pop out. And what you want to do is get your fingers as close to the bottom of the spring as possible and slowly work it in. We've got that now. So now I'm going to trap it. You can trap this in place with a screwdriver if you wish. Just while we take this, then this part of the spring is going to go in there. The spring's in place. I think I've got that. I'm just going to release it a little bit just to check. Yeah. Okay, that's in. It's a little bit of a fiddle, but it does work. You can, if you like, just load the spring up inside this cover and then just release about, let's say, an inch, and just jam it on as quick as you can. But that's in there now. I'm going to screw that up and reassemble the rest of the carburetor. Okay, now the fuel jet needle sits underneath the floats just like that. In case you didn't notice when you strip them, sits in there. I would advise that you have some kind of instrument to just hold that in place when you refit it. In there, because they do pop out as you are reinserting the floats back into the ball. In there. Be careful you haven't picked up any dirt on the way. It should fall in quite easy. If you've got to force it, then there's something wrong. Can't get that in line. There we go. Everything in the carburetor should be slack. Nothing should be tight. Okay, so the biggest nightmare when rebuilding the carburetor is finding perished seals. You see the state of that? I guarantee this will not clean up. It's all flat on that edge, so I know that's dry and it's done. The other one is totally gone on that corner. You see that there? It's dead. That will most likely not hold fuel into the carburetor. So I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to replace these. Totally gone. There's no point in reassembling that because it just means ripping the whole damn thing apart again. Right. The sad thing for me is that the bike will not be up and running today. But the good thing for you guys is that you're going to watch the video and next few seconds you're going to see this float bowl reassembled. Right, better go get those parts ordered. Okay, we've finally got our float bowl gaskets, ordered them from Fowler's. So let's get this carb rebuilt. Right. Yeah, you can, I mean, obviously they're brand new, but when you take carburetors apart, not only have these perished, the old ones, they're just, you can see how flat the rubber is. But we don't need those, do we? Where's the bowls? My float bowls are very clean, look at that. My float bowls are very clean, look at that. Perfect inside. Yes, perfect. So, now these can be a little bit of a pain when they're new. Sometimes have to put a little gasket sealer on them just to pin them in place, because they will move around where it needs to be. It's always an idea just to keep pressing them around, and eventually they will take to their new form. There we go. Just hold it there. So I'm pressing them in place, like that. Apply some pressure. Keep going round. And then you shouldn't really have to put any gasket sealer in. Ah, that's too tight there. Slow down, Paul. That's okay. There we go. That's one. That is one in place. Again, put some pressure on this around just to help it take shape. And now carefully place him in. like diffusing a bomb, isn't it? Okay. Oh. It's nicely lined up. Back over at the bike. I'm going to remove these now. There's not much room for you to see, is there? What I'm doing here. Alright, what I'm going to do now before I proceed any further is just show you where these hoses go. Because it's very easy when you're reassembling carburetors to forget where all these annoying hoses go. There's a lot of breathers and vent hoses, things like that. Right, so usually all your hoses should fall into a natural position to where they've been for the last 20-30 years or so. So the short one here, which runs right down the bike past this cylinder here, the vertical cylinder, sorry, should I call it? That one goes underneath the TPS sensor, and the hose coming out of this connector here goes to straight down the middle. Twist that over if I can. Straight down the middle to there, look. See that? There. And this one here, which routes underneath the bike, right past the frame, across here. It's got no fastening clip on the end. That goes to the outside. So we're going to clip that on, and then luckily this one goes to the tank, water drain or breather. It's got tape around this one, which is pretty good. Someone's put that on there to remember where it goes. I've tucked that underneath the suppressor cap for a spark plug. Then we get this one here, which runs from the cylinder. That goes to the back of the fuel tap. We'll get to that in a minute. And then you have your fuel pipes. Okay, maybe it's better putting the throttle cables on before we stick it in the boot. So I'm going to put the bottom one first. Just try not to get too much crap. Most of the time, you find it's easier to put this on first and then throw it into the housing. That's in there. Now you can set this back to where it was, but we're just going to set this up in a minute. We'll get our spanners. So that's that. What I'm going to do now is just give the throttle a grip. That's fine. You should have a little bit of slack in here. You should have a little bit of play on your throttle. Just try it. I'm just moving the handlebars to the full left, trying it, and then to the full right. Might hit the camera. Nope. Trying it. Perfect. Snaps. So if your throttle returns slowly when you let go of it, it turns like this. You want to ease off on down. I'm not good at filming, am I? You want to ease off on the return. Alright, some people I've seen online say I just got rid of the return cable because it was a pain in the ass, no good. Well, I've got news for you. You need this. You definitely need this. It helps snap the throttle shut. And you don't want the throttle staying open on a 1000cc V-twin Honda. So the manufacturers put it there, so you keep it there. I'm going to reconnect this to its housing. Put that in there. Grip there. And that really, there's enough slack in there, to be honest. You can see I'm just messing with the play on the grip. A little bit of play there, that's enough. That's enough, all you need. All you need. There we go. Okay, before I secure these carburetors in, I'm going to show you something extremely important. Now, we know that this bike was running extraordinarily rough. Its idle was not how it should be. Now, you see this little screw here on the camera there. Sorry about the blurriness. You see that? There's one of those on each of these carbs. The other one is tucked right under there. There we go. That one. Okay? Now, that is your pilot air screw. This will cause you a nightmare of problems. What we're going to do, I'm going to turn this all the way in and I'm going to back it out. Standard, it'll probably tell you, I don't know, 1.5 turns or 2.5 turns. I'm going to back this out 3.5 turns. Alright, because I've already screwed it in and it was out 2 turns. Now, because this bike was idling as rough as it did, I'm going to back this out 3.5, put it together. When I fire it up, I'm going to see if there's an improvement and I'll explain to you why. Alright, a little bit of education time. We're going to talk about air-fuel mixture screws and why it is so important that you get this adjusted correctly. Now, little scenario. You come to firing your bike up, you knock off your choke when it is up to operating temperature or at least over 30 to 40 degrees. Your bike is idling. It may idle fine, it may idle rough. So you take a hold of your throttle, you snap it open from idle right to the top, let go, and the bike coughs before it gets to 2000 revs, or it feels like it's going to cut out. This is a 100% guaranteed sign that your pilot jetting is off. So we are talking about a lean condition. Your engine is running too lean. There's not enough fuel vapor going through that engine. Alright, so what you need to do is take a screwdriver or whatever tool is required to adjust your air-fuel screws. It's usually a flat screwdriver. Now, you want to close your air-fuel screws, turn them all the way in and count how many turns. It may be 1 turn, 1.5 turns, or 2 turns. I usually work in half, so close them all the way, both of them, and record or remember that setting. Now, if it's 2 turns and your bike is giving you these horrible symptoms, what you need to do is turn them out 3 turns. Turn them out 3 turns, fire the bike up, let it idle for a few seconds or so, and try that throttle again. Give it a burst of throttle. If that improves, which I guarantee it will, if that improves, then it just shows you that your bike was running lean and the pilot jetting is off. Now, 3 turns is not uncommon, but it can be a little much for some carburetors to hold that setting for a long time. And what I mean is, they're all preloaded with springs. If you have to turn this out 4 turns, because it'll go about 5. If you have to turn them out about 4 turns, or when you start going past 3, that spring's integrity is getting less and less. So what can happen is, over time, the engine vibrations will make that screw slowly turn out to the point where it can just drop out and go. Now, so what you have to do to compensate in that turn is remove your pilot jets, look at the number. Let's say if it's a 54, go to a 55.5. I always go up in 1.5. So go up to a 55.5, then try that again. You will at this point have to adjust your air-fuel screw. So you may have to go in at this point if you've got 3.5 turns out. If that makes any sense. Inside your carburetor, you will have a pilot jet and a main jet. Most people will replace the main jet at this point and increase the problem, make it worse. No good. So what you need to do is adjust your pilot jetting. Now, this pilot jet here is a 75. I don't think you can see that on the camera, but it is a 75. If I had this lean condition and I adjusted my air fuel screw far beyond its comfort zone, then I would up that pilot jet in. 75, I will get a 76.5 and perhaps a 77. I would replace the pilot jet with the 76.5, or you could just go straight for the 77. If it won't adjust correctly, knock it back to 76. So I would adjust that, fit the 76.5. After that, I would then have to adjust again my air fuel screw. So I would turn that all the way in, bring it out at least 2 turns. Then with your engine running, snap open your throttle yet again. If it picks up fine and idles fine, then you just successfully adjusted your air fuel mixture. Just sounds nice, that. Idling really well. That's fully off now. So we're idling nice. I would say when it gets past this mark here, that's when the engine's actually at its fully operating temperature. If you're going to do any carb tuning, you want it to be there. See that? All the way from idle. Engine picks up nice, all the way from idle. Right, I'm going to shut him off now.